Hey y'all.
Hey Gallivanters.
So today we wanted to talk to you about another topic that we get asked a lot, and that is, how early do I really need to get to the airport? And so, right now, the thing is, with the pandemic, it's just adding all kinds of hurdles to any kind of air travel. From COVID test checks to staffing shortages. It's kind of hard to answer, but we're going to give you in this video kind of some things to think about when deciding how early to get there, and then we'll also kind of tell you what we've been hearing is the suggested amount of time.
Right. I think one of the first questions you need to ask yourself is, are you traveling domestically or internationally?
Yeah, sure.
Because we all know that if you're traveling internationally, that can tend to take a little longer.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And I think the other thing as well is, how big of an airport are you flying out of? If you're flying out of a small regional airport that's just really never that busy, you're probably okay.
Right.
But if you're flying out of somewhere like, LAX or JFK in New York, or even Atlanta, Chicago, some of those really busy airports, they were a monster to get through pre-pandemic, and now with all the other things that are going along with air travel, it's definitely going to add time.
Yes. And then along with that is, what time of day are you traveling, or is it a busy day of the week? That can wreak havoc on people too, and especially if you don't know, if you're not a seasoned traveler, you don't fly that much, you may not know. So a lot of times you can go on sites and see about wait times, certain days that are busier than others, depending on what airport you're flying out of, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, TSA here in the U.S., TSA has an app that gives you an estimated average wait time. But again, like Tracey mentioned, not just day of the week. If it's getting close to a holiday, obviously that always adds a lot to it. If there's been storm somewhere, there's maybe backed up flight somewhere else. There's so many factors that can kind of go into that. Another point too, though, is if you have status with an airline, or maybe you're flying first class, premium cabin, or you have pre-check. Pre-check obviously would only be for domestic airports, but still getting through security a little bit faster.
Right.
That could help with that.
Right. And then the other thing is how many people are you traveling with? If you all are planning to go, say you're a family of 5, and everybody's, got to get through security and got to get through check-in, and, depending on if it's domestic or international, how much time is it going to take everybody to get their stuff together?
Right.
And get through all these areas in the airport.
Yeah, and yes, absolutely. And then, I think the final piece of it is really, when you think about how early do I want to get there, well, what's your risk level? How risk tolerant are you? So in other words, if you say, gosh, I can't imagine getting to the airport 3 or 4 hours early. Okay, and what happens if you get there and you needed that much time? What does that cost you if you missed your flight? If you're trying to get to a meeting, or you have a deadline on a time you have to get somewhere, or, are you able to just change your flight to the next available flight? And, some of that may depend on what fare you booked. Right? What kind of fare you got, and is it refundable, non-refundable? Does it allow for changes? So you've got to look at all of those things to really decide. You've kind of got to add all of those things together to really make a determination on how early you should get there.
Right. Because like she said, if you're a risk taker, you're one of these that, you don't get to things to the last minute, or you wait to the last minute, then, that's a chance you take. But then there are some people that do have to be there 3-4 hours ahead of time, even if, their flight's delayed. At least they have some comfort knowing that they're there at the airport, they're already checked in, gone through security, and so they're just going to wait.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I mentioned, there can be other delays from weather and that sort of thing that you may not be aware of. Here's something else that's interesting, and I knew this, but I think I had forgotten it. So, for example, right now, flying out of Dublin, the airlines are recommending 4 hours coming back from the U.S. to get there 4 hours early. But the reason is Dublin is one of the few places that you can actually clear customs and immigration before you land here.
Yeah.
So 4 hours sounds like a lot, but then when you think about it, when you get off the flight, you're just done. You just go get your bags and you're home. I mean, that's a big deal, right? But I had forgotten that. And if I had not read that, we probably would never get to Dublin 4 hours in advance because we wouldn't think we need to. So with all that said, I think the absolute best thing you can do is to check your airline's website, because every airline out there has a listing on their website of their suggested arrival times based on, all the varying factors that they are aware of.
Okay, so for example, this is actually from Delta. They're stating that check-in times for U.S. travelers at the airports are, you need to be at the airport at least 2 hours prior to your departure, and you need to be checked in 30 minutes before your scheduled departure, and you need to be at the gate 15 minutes before your scheduled departure.
Right. And there are exceptions everywhere, and a lot of times those will be listed as well. But if you're traveling outside the U.S., again, this is from Delta, if you're traveling outside the U.S., they suggest you are there 3 hours prior to your flight. You must be checked in at least an hour before departure, and to be at the gate 45 minutes prior to your scheduled departure. So those are kind of the general guidelines. Now, again, if you know a particular airport is really, really busy, then certainly add on to that. I mean, we've got, for example, we're flying to London out of JFK soon, and we do have an early flight. So I want to, early, it's at 8:15. So, I mean, we're going to get to the airport at least by 5.
Yeah.
There may be nobody there, but we want to make sure we get there, our bags make it. And, if you have a travel card that maybe gives you access to a lounge, or you have status, you can go, hang out in a lounge for a little bit and just kind of.
Right. Because for us, it's kind of a peace of mind.
Yep.
Even like she said, if we get there at 5 and there's nobody there and we're like, bam, 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 we get right through everything. At least we know that we're there.
Yep.
We can relax before our flight. We can get our coffee. We can just get some breakfast and just chill.
Yeah. So those are our recommendations. Again, there are exceptions to that, and every airline will list those exceptions. Like I talked about Dublin earlier. I know that exception is listed on Delta's site. I'm sure it's on other airlines as well. So our best advice is certainly domestically at least 2 hours, internationally at least 3, but double check with your airline's website to make sure there's not some caveat based on where you're flying in or out of, or if there has been a bunch of flight delays, weather issues the day before, that can typically roll into the next day. So in that case, if it's a flight you have to make, I would get there. I'd add at least an hour onto those times, even domestically, just to make sure you make it.
Yes.
So those are our tips. I hope that helps. If you guys can think of something we missed, please leave it in the comments below, and we'll do our best to, answer any questions if anybody has any questions that we can answer. Also, don't forget to hit the like button.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button.
And don't forget to ring the bell.
Ding it dong.
So you'll be the first to know when we release new content. We really appreciate you guys watching. And until next time, y'all, just remember,
live your best life.
Bye, y'all.
See ya.